Hi, I'm Shivan Sarna, and I am the founder of SIBO SOS and Chronic Condition Rescue. I am the creator of over 11 summits, and our newest one is in production called The Science and Wisdom of Menopause. The Science and Wisdom of Menopause, that's going to be coming in hot first quarter of 2025. Very excited about it. What I'm also excited about is today's topic, which is your skin, the microbiome of the skin, the inside out of the skin, your body's largest organ, and what we can all do about it to have it be healthier. Our beautiful barrier, right? And not to mention beauty and anti-aging and all of that. As a host on Home Shopping Network for 24 years, I worked with some of the world's leading models, Lauren Hutton, I don't know, I'm not going to name drop like crazy right now, and also the formulators. A lot of scientists actually came on. And so I learned a lot about skincare that way. But there was no one who approached it the way Kiran Krishnan is approaching it. And he is with us today. He is the co-founder of Microbiome Labs. He is also now doing some very cool projects, including SIV, which we're going to be talking about. It's like an IV for your skin, which is a topical serum with spore-based probiotics. We're going to have a learning session. We'll get to some questions. I'm going to hand things right over to you, sir. It's great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody that's joining us and will be watching this later. This is such an exciting topic because, as some of you know, I spent the last, 10, 12 years working on the gut barrier because the gut barrier is very well understood to be directly associated with all kinds of systemic dysfunctions in the body if the barrier is not functioning like the barrier is supposed to. And the gut barrier is actually, very interesting because it's a very dynamic barrier, given that the barrier is selectively permeable. It's supposed to let lots of things through, like nutrients and so on, but also prevent the encroachment by lots of different bacteria, viruses, and so on, and toxins that can migrate through, end up disrupting the barrier even further, triggering immune responses in the gut, but then eventually triggering immune responses systemically as well, as a lot of those unwanted things leak through and enter into circulation. So anytime you have a barrier system in the body, the management of that barrier becomes critically important for just overall health and wellness, right? And in the gut, when the barrier becomes dysfunctional early on, you start to realize that as digestive issues. This is one of the reasons why digestive issues are so common, right? The vast majority of adults and a huge percentage of kids experience and report having digestive issues. So these are simple things like indigestion, food intolerances, cramping, bloating, chronic diarrhea, chronic constipation, SIBO, versions of IBS. All of these things are disturbances in the digestive system, often associated with early stages of barrier dysfunction. And then the more late stages of barrier dysfunction become chronic conditions. So it becomes things like autoimmune conditions, gut-brain issues, so cognitive dysfunction, anxiety, depression, and so on. And we know that those pathologies are pretty clear now. So then we were working on that for more than a decade, and I feel like we made a significant amount of progress in developing tools and understanding and proving those tools through clinical research on how we can manage the gut barrier. And no surprise, it's the microbes, the resident microbes in that area that play such an important role in managing the barrier. And so our goal became understanding what the microbial environment needs to look like in order for the microbes, the resident microbes, to help manage the barrier. Now, the same thing occurs on the skin. The skin is arguably your largest barrier in your body. It is a much more stringent barrier than the gut, meaning it's not as dynamic. It's not supposed to, and it doesn't allow a lot of things through, nor should it allow a lot of things to go out either, right? So the skin, as opposed to the gut, is a very structured brick wall-like barrier, because if you think about the gut, there's only one cell thick layer. These are the endothelial cells that are the epithelial cells that sit next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, and provide that last form of protection against things being truly inside the body. And on top of that, there's a mucosal layer. On the skin, you don't have just one cell layer thick. You've got numerous layers of cells. You've got the dermis and the epidermis. The epidermis itself has dozens of layers of cells, and you've got dead cells, live cells, all kinds of squamous cells in these tile formation, brick-like formations, all of that because it acts like a true physical barrier to things entering into the body. Now, as it turns out, maintenance of the skin barrier, very similar to the gut barrier, the maintenance of the skin barrier is highly dependent on the microorganisms that are resident to that part of the skin. And I say that part of the skin because different parts of your body have different types of resident microbes. On the face, for example, it's a much more oily surface than the rest of your body. It's called a sebaceous area, so it's much more oily. There's a lot more anaerobic environment. So you've got certain microbes like Cutibacterium magnesis that tend to be prevalent, and Staph epidermidis that tend to be prevalent as well, because they can live in these anaerobic environments. The dry parts of your skin, like your forearms, your legs, your lower back, have much higher diversity and much different friendly bacteria and a lot different dysfunctional bacteria as well. Nonetheless, the resident microbe is very important in maintaining the structure of the barrier of your skin. What happens if the structure of the barrier of your skin becomes dysfunctional, right? This is where it really becomes fascinating, because there have been some new discoveries made in this area. And this is part of why the barrier of the skin now interests me as much as the gut barrier did 10, 12 years ago. And that's because of new data that's coming out. Right? So 10, 12 years ago, we knew the gut barrier dysfunction led to chronic conditions. Now we know that skin barrier dysfunction also leads to chronic conditions. And I'll elaborate on that when I share some slides for you. And we also know that early stages of skin barrier dysfunction present as very common things that we'd have to deal with and tackle on the skin. Just like early stages of gut barrier dysfunction look like indigestion, gut issues, IBS, SIBO, intolerances, and so on, skin dysfunction, skin barrier and dysbiosis, which then leads to barrier dysfunction, presents as common skin conditions: acne, eczema, psoriasis, fine lines, wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, thinning of the skin, loss of moisture, so drying of the skin, and so on, right? So the presence of these features on the skin is already an indication that there's a microbial shift occurring on the skin. And as a result of the microbial shift, what will happen is the barrier of the skin, the barrier function of the skin, becomes compromised. And to me, those cosmetic and topical issues I just mentioned are a problem enough. But beyond that, as the barrier system becomes more and more dysfunctional, it can actually be a driver of chronic conditions, right? So leaky skin is very similar to leaky gut in that having leaky skin is an independent risk factor for the development and progression of numerous chronic conditions, right? So there are people that are dealing with health conditions that are seemingly unrelated to the skin, like osteoporosis or like dementia, or issues that you would never connect to the skin, where the skin and the leakiness of the skin is acting as a driver of that condition, right? So this is why it becomes so interesting and important to me, because along the way, it's great to solve the early stage issues, the acnes, the eczemas, the fine lines, wrinkles, and all that. We all want to resolve those. But in doing so, in resolving those, especially if we do so from the microbiome perspective, what we're also doing is ensuring that the barrier system is also working better, right? So let me share some slides. I hope that made sense as to why the skin barrier is actually analogous to the gut barrier, which many people are familiar with, why I would then take such a strong interest in the skin barrier. The cosmetic improvements are a bonus to me. But the bigger picture is the health improvements that one can see when you impact the barrier.
The osteoporosis, the dementia, that's wild. Go for it. I can't wait to hear
Crazy,
more.
right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
you would never think they're connected to your
Yeah,
skin, but they absolutely are. So let me do that. Let me share my screen. Okay. I think you're probably seeing my calendar, right?
no, it says everything on your screen, including notifications, will be recorded. Enable do not disturb to prevent unexpected notifications, which, by the way, I do have an ask from the YouTube universe. Please make sure your phone notification is off, because sometimes when we talk to you, we get a lot of vibe buzzing stuff going on.
Ah,
It's so
yes.
popular.
Now, do you see slides?
I do. We just need to make it full screen and we're good to
Yeah.
go. Yep.
Okay, let me do that. Let me do slideshow. This can be from the start.
There we go.
Okay. Are we full screen?
We are, but we're not full screen because I still
Okay, let me
see
look.
something that makes me, there you go. I feel
Better?
glad that you have 10,000 unread emails because I have 50,000. And so someone's at least double, 5 digits. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. We'll get to them, I'm sure, at some point. Okay, so let's dig into a little bit on what happens. What does it look like? What does it mean? Why is it important to balance the skin microbiome? And what is the impact of balancing the skin microbiome? What I want to do is show you first what can be done when you balance the skin microbiome, and then take you through a little bit of an explanation of why that's important, right? Like how skin barrier dysfunction is related to osteoporosis. We want to clarify that as well. Now, we're doing all of this with the spore-based balancing serum, which we talked about, and I'll explain why we use the spores as well. This was another, kind of understanding that came about through some early work that we've done back in like 2015, and then pairing up with Isabel and Morgan, we really refined this work and started to understand the impact that the spores could have. Let me give you a few examples of participants. So some of these are case studies before and afters, but we just want to show how making a shift in microbes on the skin can create a phenomenal change on what the skin starts to look like. So here's one of the early participants that we started working with. You look at their baseline data. This is what you see here in this gray box, and then the 14-day later data is in the blue box. So the changes that I'm going to point out occurred in as little as 2 weeks, and then we carried on the treatment, and then the pictures you'll see is a little longer than 2 weeks, but it's a result of making these microbial changes. So now one of the things you would notice in this individual is the presence of Corneum bacterium. This is one of those microbes that tend to increase on your skin, on your face in particular, as you age, and it's responsible for some of the aging characteristics of the skin. So the thinning of the skin, the hyperpigmentation, the fine lines and wrinkles, and so on. So just the disruption to the tone and texture of the skin, you start to see when you start to see an increase in Corneum bacterium. So if you see this individual at baseline, they had 2.7% of the microbes on the skin of the face were Corneum bacterium. The other thing, and then you'd notice after we saw a marked reduction in the amount of Corneum bacterium in terms of relative abundance of Corneum bacterium on their skin, right? You also see that this individual had almost 60% Cutibacterium acnesis on their skin, on their face in particular, right? That's really high. Cutibacterium acnesis in most individuals, when you have high levels, is one of the key drivers of the formation of acne lesions. So inflammatory and to some degree non-inflammatory lesions as well. So this individual had 60%. If I never saw a picture of this individual and I just saw that they had 2.7% Corneum bacterium, 60% Cutibacterium, I'd say, okay, this person probably has some red acne-like lesions, probably some hyperpigmentation and discoloration of the skin. As a result of it, it doesn't matter if they're young or old. This person could be 16 years old or it could be 40 years old. They would still present this way with this kind of microbiome on the skin, right? And then when you look at the post-treatment, we brought down Corneum bacterium in as little as 2 weeks. The Cutibacterium went from 60% to 13.2% on the skin. That's a massive reduction in the prevalence of Cutibacterium on the skin. So as a result, I would predict, if again, I never saw any pictures of this individual, that the 14-day and beyond picture would look far less red, far few lesions on the skin, better uniformity to the skin, and so on, without actually having to see a picture of the individual. And as it turns out, when you look at this individual, that's absolutely what we see, right? Now, this individual had been through Accutane, 1, maybe 2 rounds, have been dealing with these inflammatory prevalent lesions, especially on the forehead, around the nose area, right above the upper lip, and between the nose and so on. Lots of irritation, angry, inflamed lesions. And then as a result, an issue with uniformity and hyperpigmentation and all that is left by the scarring from the acne. That's also in part the role of Corneum bacterium. So then you see, now that we were able to bring down the Cutibacterium and the Corneum bacterium, you see a tremendous amount of clearing on the skin. Not only are all those lesions gone, right? We also see the hyperpigmentation spots that were left by the lesions previously. Those have also cleared up. We see improved skin tone, improved texture, improved clarity in the individual skin. All of this, and you notice it on the bottom of the nose, between the nose and the lip as well, significant reductions in inflammation. All of this just from shifting the microbes on the skin, right? So that's a very important way to look at this. Another type of Corneum bacterium in this individual, 12.7%, pretty high relative abundance there. And you look at Cutibacterium acnesis at 14%, not as bad as the other individuals' starting amount, which was at 60%, this is at 14%. But nonetheless, we were able to drop Cutibacterium acnesis to some small degree, and we were able to make some improvements in the Corneum bacterium, in that Corneum bacterium is gone in this individual, or at least the prevalence is so low that it's not really detectable. Now, I would look at this individual and go, okay, they have elevated Corneum bacterium, some degree of Cutibacterium, maybe they have a few pimples, but they probably have a uniformity issue on the skin, the complexion, the tonality, and so on of the skin. That's how I would predict it. And then I would predict, with bringing down the Cutibacterium a little bit, that whatever few pimples they had would probably be gone. And the dramatic reduction in Corneum bacterium means that the tone texture of the skin is probably improved. And then the increase in Staph epidermidis, which is a very beneficial staphylococcus that you want on your skin, as opposed to Staph aureus. Staph aureus is the opportunistic version that is associated with inflammation and numerous conditions on the skin, like numerous types of dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, eczema, psoriasis, and so on. Staphylococcus aureus is associated with that. Staph epidermidis is very beneficial to the skin, right? So we were able to bring back Staph epidermidis that was at such low levels in this individual that it wasn't even registering on the test. So now when we look at the individual, we start to see the effects of that, right? She didn't have a lot of pimples. She had a few inflamed lesions. Those are gone as well. And this is just in a 2-week period. The patches of inflammation are gone. You look at the tonality and the texture of the skin, lots of the hyperpigmentation spots and what looks like bigger pores on this individual, more visible pores that you could see on the cheek here. Those visible pores have shrunk, and you see much more uniformity of the skin. That's, again, all from modulating the microbes on the skin, because it's the microbes that play such a big role in how the skin looks, how it functions, and then ultimately how it functions as a barrier, right? So I gave you these 2 examples with microbiome changes, but then let me show you other before and afters without having to go through all the microbiome changes. If you look at these individuals in 30 days, reduced lesions, improvement in hydration on the skin, improved skin tone, texture, clarity in just 30 days, right? Transformative for these individuals in such a short period of time. This is another great one that we recently got, and this is just a 10-day change,
Whoa.
right? And the only thing,
wow.
right? These are really angry, inflammatory lesions, right?
Must be so, or this person must be so happy. I mean, not
Oh,
happy.
they're ecstatic,
Oh
and
my
just
God.
think these are painful lesions
Oh,
around the mouth area, right? That, of course, cosmetically, you're not happy if you have these, but then they're also painful and create a lot of quality of life issues. And the only thing she used for these 10 days was sieve and sunscreen, right? Dramatic reduction in lesions, the number of lesions, the redness, the how inflamed they are in their sizes, the improved levels of hydration, improved skin tone. Her esthetician put her on this. We primarily sell to estheticians, and we primarily target skincare professionals, dermatologists, estheticians. Of course, to Shivan, with all of the microbiome lab stuff, we always make things accessible through your audience, Shivan, because of our long-term relationship. And so these individuals I'm showing you the before and afters are either case studies that we did or estheticians that are doing case studies for us that are using this in their practices. So this was a very recent one that we got, and we were just blown away by this response. Keep in mind, they only use the two things. It's not like they were using 15 different things on this individual. If you look at this as well, a 90-day transformation, if you look at the severity of the lesions that she had before, and then what it looks like 90 days later, all of this just from changing the microbiome. The tone, texture, and all that of the skin as well becomes different, quite a bit different. Same thing here, 30-day transformation. And keep in mind, we're showing a lot of acne, but acne is a really good surrogate condition for leaky skin, inflamed skin, hyperimmune activity on the skin, dysbiosis on the skin, and then all of the other problems that can occur as a result of those dysfunctions, right? So we show you acne because it's easier to see, it's easier to visualize, and you can see the dramatic changes. In this case, I mean, if you look at the picture, this individual looks like they have completely clear skin in 30 days, right? Compared to the baseline. And then we look at non-inflammatory comedones and non-inflammatory lesions on this individual in as little as 14 days. You see massive changes and improvement, of course, in the clarity and the texture of the skin. Same here, 14 days, clarity, tone of the skin improvements really quite dramatically. You see how red her tonality was, and these were pictures that were taken in the exact same location, exact same light, exact same, and this was done by a professional, so that's why you see the backgrounds are exactly the same, but you see the dramatic difference in the coloration of the skin, right? Which is a tone feature, really quite impressive. Same here, improvement in skin clarity and tone, and dramatic reduce in redness in the skin, and of course, any few lesions that they had were also gone. Same kind of progression here in 14 days. And this individual, this is more of a fungal issue, which can also occur on your head, which a lot of people have it on their scalp, and this individual happened to have it on his facial hair as well. This is likely an overgrowth of a fungus, and that's what causes kind of the dandruff, the flakiness, and all that. And in 2 weeks, this has been resolved so dramatically, you wouldn't even detect that this individual had this issue on their skin. You also notice right on the side of the bridge of his nose, how irritated and inflamed that skin was. That's not acne. That's a version of dermatitis. So it's inflamed skin that's drying out, that's becoming a lesion. That was also cleared up in that 2-week period. So if there's flakiness, itchiness, or fungal overgrowth on the scalp, it works for that as well. Same thing here again, 60 days, dramatic reduction in lesions and tonality of the skin, improvement in tonality. Another great example of that as well. And then we did a 317 subject study on this. It was a consumer study that we did for 30 days. This was the age demographic. The biggest chunk of people were 25 to 35, with 32% of people 36 to 42. Mostly female, some male participants as well. 30-day duration. The results showed that 95.2% of people reported dramatic improvements in hydration to the point where they could physically notice it in that period of time. 91.5% of people express improvements in youthfulness of the skin. 93.9% reported an improvement in nourishment of the skin. So they agreed that SIV helped their skin feel more nourished and feel healthier, which is a really important feature that people should feel. Almost 90% saw a reduction in inflammation. These are people with occasional acne, some inflammation on the skin. 90% saw an improvement in complexion on the skin, which was amazing. We did not expect it to be this high, but it was. 87% of users reported more even tone on the skin as well. Keep in mind, again, this is all 30 days. And 86% would recommend SIV's Biome Balancing Serum to their family and friends. So this was a great result for us, run by a third party. This was not something that we've done. There are companies that you can hire to do third-party testing and collate all the data. We wanted to see what people's experiences would be generally in terms of the consumer market versus the case studies and all that we had. So this was really, really great to see for us. The other question that we get is SIV comedogenic, right? Which means that can it cause a clogging of the pores and cause the formation of comedones? This is really important because there's lots of things that you can apply to your face. Oftentimes it's certain moisturizers and serums and all that can be comedogenic, which means that it can cause breakouts, it can cause the formation of lesions as a result of using the product itself. So we went to a clinical research organization, a validated third-party clinical research organization. We wanted to do this study to ensure that it's non-comedogenic. This is 30 healthy volunteers, 18 and on up. It's a single-blind, single-center study where they do patch testing. This is the gold standard in how you do this type of study. The duration was a 6-week period, and they find people with half of them have reported sensitive skin, and then a good mix of dry, oily, normal skin, and so on. And then they do patch testing on different sites of the body to see if it induces comedones. And what we found was that SIV was not comedogenic. It causes no cytotoxicity, which is no negative impact to the skin. It's very nourishing and very safe on the skin. And of course, as we're going to talk about, very good for the skin microbiome as well. Right? All of these changes that we're seeing. Yeah.
Can you just define comedogenic? Because not everyone knows that term.
Yeah. So comedogenic. So a comedone is a lesion on the skin, right? So for example, acne lesions are considered comedones. So these are like little bumps on the skin. They could be big bumps. They could be huge bumps. They could be little bumps. All of those are considered comedones because they come as a result of clogging of the pores and inflammation and the formation of blackheads and then eventually the lesion itself. So that's called a comedone. If something is comedogenic, it means it causes the formation of comedones, right? So some people have used facial moisturizers that all of a sudden cause them to break out. Or foods even. So a lot of people who are sensitive and have acne tendencies, if they ate dairy, they would break out. If they ate certain things, they would break out. If they ate gluten, they might break out. Those things can be said to be comedogenic. So it's very important for us to note because a lot of people with sensitive skin will be using this product that we wanted to validate that it's non-comedogenic. So that's what it means. Hopefully that makes it clear. And again, all of these changes we're talking about is because of SIV's ability to shift the microbiome on the skin, right? And that is a key component to this because we're not masking problems that are created on the skin. We're not putting an anti-inflammatory that disrupts immune function on the skin. We're not using a sterilizing antiseptic on the skin to kill, for example, Cutibacterium magnesis or Corneum bacterium and just wipe out everything else on the skin, right? A lot of people are using various forms of acids and antimicrobials on the skin to try to control acne and other problems. Those things sterilize the skin microbiome. Same kind of danger as using antibiotics and antimicrobials in the gut. You don't necessarily want to sterilize and wipe out lots of the good guys as well. You need something that can be the SEAL Team 6, have some sort of precision function in terms of controlling the microbiome, right? This is where the spores come in. This is why they're so fascinating. I've been working with spores even well before we started microbiome labs because I was in the enzyme business, and spores make a lot of enzymes. So I've been working with Bacillus endospores now for probably 20, 25 years. And the thing is, one of the things that we know about Bacillus endospores is their unique ability to really exercise quorum sensing, right? So what is that? Well, quorum sensing is the capability of certain microbes to read other microbial signatures. Now, when you have an ecosystem, lots of different bacteria and other microbes, so you've got fungus and viruses and all that, many of these microbes put out chemical signatures into the environment, right? So into the extracellular matrix, if you will, the soup that all the microbes live in. Now, these chemical signatures can be read by other microbes. Some microbes do it much better than others, and some microbes can detect the presence of dysfunctional microbes in the environment by reading their chemical signatures. And when they do that, they also have a set of tools that they can go and exercise a process of bringing down those dysfunctional microorganisms. So in order to have a very good quorum sensing agent, a good quorum sensing microbe, beneficial microbe that can really improve the situation, you need a microbe that, number one, can do quorum sensing well, but number two, has to understand what's good and what's not good in that environment. That's a very unique set of requirements for a microbe. We validated that the Bacillus endospores had this capability in the gut, right? We had published a number of studies showing that when you take Bacillus endospores in as a probiotic and it gets into your gut, it does a quorum sensing. It can identify the presence of pathogens and dysfunctional bacteria, and it can identify that beneficial bacteria are low, and then it exercises a number of tools to bring down the dysfunctional bacteria and yet increase the growth of beneficial bacteria, right? So the tools that it can use for the dysfunctional bacteria are it can make antimicrobials in that little microenvironment to bring down the microbes. It can use chelating agents to starve the pathogenic microbes of minerals and other things like iron that it may need. It can then produce precursors or prebiotics, if you will, to feed beneficial bacteria to increase their growth. So this is a very specialized capability, and we know and we've shown it that it happens in the gut. We hypothesize that the Bacillus spores, being ubiquitous and microbes that we tend to naturally have, at least when we lived a more natural lifestyle, tend to naturally have on our skin. And we predicted that they probably have some quorum sensing capability on the skin as well. And sure enough, we figured out that they did. When you add the right Bacillus endospores at the right concentration to your skin, they monitor the population of microbes on the skin. When they identify an overgrowth of a dysfunctional microbe, like in that first case, 60% Cutibacter magnesis, in a relatively short amount of time, they can bring down that pathogen or that opportunistic organism to a more manageable levels where it then doesn't harm or cause an issue for the host. Same thing with Corneum bacterium, same thing with Staph aureus, and a lot of these opportunistic dysfunctional microbes that we tend to have on our skin. The Bacillus endospores can sense them, and then they can exercise a number of mechanisms to bring them down and then increase the beneficial microbes. So they're doing this in the skin. They also do it in the gut. Now, the benefits on the skin are what we saw, all the early stages of skin dysbiosis, like acne, inflammation, tonality issues, and fine lines and wrinkles, and so on. Those things get improved. But at the end of the day, what we're really doing is ensuring that the barrier of the skin functions properly. And let me elaborate on that a little bit. Because as we mentioned earlier, the skin is a very rigid barrier, right? There's many different layers to it. Another very important component to the skin barrier is this ceramide layer, this fatty acid layer that's found in the epidermis of the skin. Now, this fatty acid layer is really important. Not only is it part of the matrix that holds the skin cells together in this brick-like structure. So think about the mortar in a brick wall that is holding all the bricks together. But it also acts as a way of preventing moisture loss because, of course, water doesn't mix with oil. So when you have an oil lattice, if you will, then the moisture from inside the skin cannot escape it. right? So that's how we maintain moisture on our skin, which is a very important factor in the skin. Now, the other reason why having a lipid or fat layer that's part of the matrix of the barrier of the skin important, because a lot of toxins that are found in the environment and all that, a lot of inorganic molecules, all of those things are oil or fat soluble. So they get captured in the oil matrix that is in the top part of the epidermis part of your skin. And then it's not allowed to pass through, right? And so it gets captured there, and then the oil layer gets recycled by the microbes, and then the microbes cause the generation of more of the fresh oil layer, and breaks down and releases the old oil, which actually maintains some of the shininess and the glow of the skin as well. So the microbes are playing a very important role in maintaining the cellular matrix of the skin, maintaining the turnover of the top layers of the skin, maintaining this lipid barrier that we call the ceramide layer of the skin, and then also modulating immune responses on the skin so that your immune system isn't overtly reacting to all kinds of things that your skin may come in contact with. This is in the case of people with eczema, psoriasis, sensitive skin tend to get a lot of rashes and irritation. It's because their immune system is overtly active to any sort of stimulus that occurs on the skin. So over time, as the skin becomes more dysbiotic, you start to notice it as inflammation, potentially acne and acne-like lesions. It might turn into an eczema or psoriasis or some form of dermatitis. Then you start to see things like thinning of the skin, drying out of the skin, fine lines, wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, tone issues, and all that. All of that gets you on the road to having really significant leaky skin. Now, that is a impact on the resilience of the skin. And this is why we focus so much on this word resilience when we talk about SIV, because my goal and Microbiome Labs was to always build resilience in the gut. Because when you're resilient in the gut, it actually makes you resilient to drastic changes in the environment or your lifestyle, your choices, your behaviors, and it also makes you more resilient to long-term chronic issues. The same thing is on the skin. We don't want to have sensitive skin. We don't want to have skin where just because we didn't drink enough water, for a day or two, or we didn't get enough sleep, or we got exposed to something outside, that the skin becomes dry or red or irritated, right? We want some resilience in the skin so that it can withstand negative stimuli. So building this resilience is a very important factor, and that resilience comes from having a healthy microbiome on the skin. And then we can also then deliver relief, right? Things that a lack of resilience and dysbiosis creates, things like inflammation, like aging of the skin, and so on. And then we can continue to support the balance on the skin so we have resilience and we have skin that can withstand negative stimuli, which your skin is always going to encounter negative stimuli, especially in the day and age that we live in now, right? So it's what's great about SIV and the way it works, it's applicable to all. So, right, we've done sensitive skin testing and all that, the comedogenic testing, we've done cytotoxicity testing and all that. There's no negative impact to people's skin. So it doesn't matter if you have sensitive skin, oily skin, dry skin, mixed skin. If you're 65 years old or you're 16, you can absolutely use it. There's no contraindications that we know of, and it's very easy to use because it's once a day. It's once a day application on any affected part of the skin or affected part of the skin. Most people use it on the face daily, but you can use it on the body as well. And I'll talk about how you do that. And then the relief that we're seeing is fairly rapid, right? I showed you a lot of those cases were 14 days and 30 days. So seeing those changes relatively quickly is really, really fantastic. This is the formulation, proprietary blend of Bacillus endospores, glycerol, caprylic, triglycerides, and squalane. These are skin mimetic lipids that once you put it on, it rubs right in and it disappears. So there's no oily residue, there's no oily feeling. It feels really nice and smooth and gentle on the skin. What we really like about this is it helps carry the bacillus to a little bit deeper than the very, very top layers of the skin, which is great because then we have more opportunity for the bacillus to modulate immune response in the skin, which is where we see that reduction of redness in many of those cases, right? So how to use at home? Basically, just to simplify this, you would use this after you wash your face or your body. You would apply it before you put on your moisturizer, right? And we could tackle some of that in more detail if you wish in the Q&A. And as always, because Shivan is a great friend, and we always want to offer something to our audience, so we have this code, Shivan15 for 15% off that you can utilize. So I'm sure this is being put in the chat as well by Morgan and Isabel and other people. But so this is the code for people to know. And this is the last thing I want to show you. I'll jump away from this. I want to give you a little bit of this understanding of leaky skin, and then the study. I want to show you the studies that are validating this concept of skin being an independent risk factor for chronic illness, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are not just concerned about how their skin looks cosmetically. You may also be concerned about chronic health issues, right? So I want to show you why the skin is relevant to it. So a quick thing on the core tenets of leaky skin is that you've got your microbial community on the skin, right? And then you've got your host cells, which are the skin cells and the various cells that are on the skin and the deeper layers of the skin. And then you have the host immune system. Now, all of these affect one another. The microbial community affects how the host cell functions, thereby then affects how the immune system responds to the outer layers of the skin. The microbial community also has direct communication with the host immune system. So the microbial community, if they're dysfunctional, can trigger immune responses on the skin, thereby damaging the host cells. So if you get eczema or psoriasis, for example, that's an example of an overactive host immune system that's damaging the skin cells. That host immune system is being driven by negative effects of the microbial community, where you have too many pathogens that are releasing toxins and all that, recruiting the immune system to the host cell, right? Thereby damaging the host cell. In a homeostatic environment, you would have a balanced microbial community that's supporting the host cell, and the host cell is communicating homeostasis to the immune system so that the immune system is not overtly acting and damaging the skin, right? So, and then the communication goes back the other way as well. This system of communication gets dismantled when you have leaky skin, right? Because you've got an overactive number of pathogens and dysfunctional microbes. They damage the skin cells, the host cells. The damaged host cells recruit the immune system constantly, and the immune system then goes on to damage the host cell even more. It's exactly what happens in the gut, where leaky gut is caused by dysfunctional microbes triggering damage to the host cells. The host cells recruit the immune system comes in and damages the host cell even more, right? So this is the core tenet of leaky skin. A lot of this idea of skin being an independent risk factor for chronic conditions comes from this long study called the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging. This is a 50-60-year study. And in this study, they showed that weathered and unhealthy skin is emerging as a major risk factor for almost every single age-related disease, from Parkinson's to type 2 diabetes, right? And it's not that the insides of these individuals are unhealthy and thereby they have Parkinson's or type 2 diabetes, and then the skin is a reflection of the unhealthy inside. What this research study over almost 60 years have shown is that the aged leaky skin occurs first and drives more systemic inflammation because things are leaking through the skin, ending up in circulation and driving chronic low-grade inflammation, right? So imagine that aging skin or dysfunctional skin is a major risk factor for Parkinson's disease, for dementia, for type 2 diabetes, for other things like cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, neurodegenerative conditions, right? So now we know, based on this scientific revelation from this long-term study with thousands and thousands of individuals, that we have to take care of our skin. We have to be very mindful of the barrier function of the skin, the resilience of the skin. How healthy it looks is a result of how healthy it functions. if your skin looks unhealthy, it is not functioning as a barrier in a healthy way, thereby adding risk to lots of other chronic conditions. So if you're somebody that's dealing with chronic conditions, your skin may be part of this driving effect of the issue you're dealing with. Again, this is why I became so interested in dealing with the skin microbiome. So we'll stop there. We'll answer a question. Aged skin drives chronic disease risk, right? That is the conclusion from this massive study.
That is amazing. I mean, I've talked to a lot. My company is called Chronic Condition Rescue. Kiran, I've never seen this study before, and I talked to a lot of people about this. So thank you so much for revealing.
My pleasure.
Oh my gosh, come on up for camera so we can see you.
Oh yeah, let's see.
That is wild. Let's put some love into the chat for Kiran. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful, beautiful presentation. I know a lot of you are wondering what he's going to be doing later. Let's look at his schedule. That'll be fun. Okay. Okay. I have questions that we've saved for you, and then your team has been doing a beautiful job of answering questions as well. I want to show you what it looks like. Here's the bottle. And here's the tip that I have, right? When you get it at home, make sure you've got it. Storing it upright is the best way, Kiran. And then you guys shake it, and then you use it
and people may be able to see this. So we put a little window at the bottom, right? So the spores can settle down to the bottom. So in this case, I've had this upright. You see the solids there, right? Mm-hmm. That's the settlement. So that's what you want to look at. You want to look and see, okay, it's settled. So before I use this, I would shake it up. And then what you'll see after that is that's all gone. And so now the liquid is much more clear. And then when you look at when the liquid is coming out, you'll be able to notice that, on the newer ones, it's a completely clear tip, but the liquid is a little bit beige in color. So you'll notice that the spores are in there, they're mixed in well, and it rubs right in. The basic way to use it is at night, once you wash your face, you would add 1 drop on each side of the face. So you wash your face, you add a drop in, and you massage and rub it in on this half of the face, including your neck and chin. Then you add a drop on this side, and you add a drop on your forehead, and you rub it in. Now, I mentioned you can use it on the body. I use it on my body all the time because from all the years of sports and all that, and being in gyms and locker rooms and all that, you get inoculated with staph. And what can happen is over time you get episodes of little lesions from staph on parts of your body. That's something that I've dealt with many a times throughout my life. And so what I started doing is I use a lot of moisturizer after I shower. I take a handful of lotion and I put about 3 or 4 drops of SIV in the lotion, mix it up, and then I rub it on. So I use it all over. And I found that to be completely a game changer for me with that issue. And if I ever have any sort of irritation on the skin, like even a bug bite, a little pimple or something anywhere on your body, including your face, I can directly apply it on there as well, and it helps tremendously. Or any dry patches of your skin, or a little eczema, dermatitis-like patch, you can apply it directly on there. The only thing we say is if the skin is broken, meaning it's bleeding, and you see blood, then don't apply it on there. I don't think there'll be any danger, but the thing is we haven't tested it on broken skin, right? So we follow the signs. So I don't want to recommend using it on broken skin that may be bleeding, and because we haven't tested it.
Lynn, yes, you just went over clinical studies in the presentation. Guys, this is 1 drop. I already did the side while you were talking. So I literally put 1 drop on my finger, and it does the whole half of my face, all the way up here, and then down here. So I sometimes, like, my neck kind of bothers me sometimes, so I'll sometimes put an extra drop right there. So 3 drops. So this lasts a long time. So skincare that doesn't even have this can be so ridiculously expensive.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's nuts. And this is actually really affordable. We also have that special temporary 15% coupon for you, and it's in the chat right there. I want to click on the link, and then we'll get to your questions. Hello, let's see, share screen. Here we go. So if you click on the link, you're going to see this. You go up here to buy now. But look, it's only $68. And then you have the 15% off. That is a steal and a half. That is like seriously, CVS, Rite Aid, whatever your pharmacy is, and you're going in there, sometimes they have nice brands, but I'm saying this is like so inexpensive, Kiran. And look, the 3 drops did everything from my décolleté up. So just keep that in mind. The other thing that I want to talk about quickly is, are you guys still sending out these cards, Kiran?
I think we are, Morgan.
Okay.
Isabel, they'd have to verify, but I think we are.
No matter what, you want to shake it before you use it. That's the main thing. This is just showing the colors. It's actually, don't overthink it. Mainly just shake, shake, shake. And then the other thing that is so important is that it lasts a long time. What is the shelf life on it, Kiran? How long was it?
Forever. Yeah. I mean, again, it's the spores, and just like in the probiotic format, we put the shelf life at like 4 years or 3 years. We have no indication that it goes bad. The good thing is that it's all oil. It's all lipids, right? So there's no water in this at all. If you have any cosmetic products that has water in it, then you have the danger of mold and all that growing. So we don't have to put a preservative in it, which is fantastic. So the 4 ingredients that you saw are the only 4 ingredients in it. There's no secret, preservative and antimicrobial and all that in there. And it lasts forever. I would say, a couple of years, if you will, but most people will, when they get it, they'll use it within about 30 days or so. So
as soon as you get it, start to use it, because this sitting on your shelf isn't going to help you. So start to use it. It's not just for acne, Joanna. He just spent the past 50 minutes talking about the other things that it is also good for. They have done clinical studies on a variety of things. I want to get to your questions. Please do me a huge favor. Put your questions into the Q&A box, not into the chat. I'm not going to look at the chat. I'm going to just do Q&As. And also his team members, Morgan and Isabel, are there as well. Been doing a great job. So how long is the coupon code good for? Isabel, I think it's a week. Do you ship with Canada to Canada? They are typing you an answer right now. So Kiran, this is not like just taking Megaspore and opening the capsule, putting it in some oil and rubbing it around. Let's just that up too, because some people might be like, oh, I have some spores at home. This is very, very different. Can you use it on your scalp?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, you can use it on your scalp, especially if you have dry, flaky scalp, if you've got irritation, all of that, you can absolutely use it, and it will be a huge help.
Yes, he did show how it helps with staph. He showed that on one of the slides. That was one of the primary things that he was talking about. You will receive a replay of this tonight. What I also wanted to tell you, because we only have 5 more minutes, but your team's done a great job with the questions. Don't worry, Christopher, I see yours. I wanted to let everybody know that if you did purchase between now and 5 p.m. Eastern, and you send us listen to this part, you have to send us the proof of purchase to info@SIBO.SOS, you will be receiving a bonus that is a masterclass that is normally $59, and it is by Kiran Krishnan. Love that. And it is Spore-Based Probiotic, a user's guide with Kiran Krishnan, and Petunia made her appearance here. So that's just a special bonus. If you are interested in purchasing this, you'll get the 15% off. And if you do it within the next hour and 5 minutes, send us the proof of purchase to info@SIBOSOS.com. We'll send you the link for that. Please do that right away. Like, don't send it to us in a week or tomorrow even, because it's a heavy lift for my team. So I've sort of talked them into it for tonight. Okay, let's see. Would this be a good combo product to use with an internal product to support the gut, like Serene Skin?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the first things we did when we developed this was we paired with the aesthetic clinic who was already using Serene Skin, and had them take a certain number of patients and use the combination versus just one of the products alone. And absolutely, we saw, because there's, of course, the gut-skin axis, and Serene Skin works through the gut-skin axis, which dramatically modulates inflammatory responses in the skin that is driven by the gut. So I would absolutely recommend doing a combination of the two. I saw another question on there in the chat on eczema, psoriasis. So if somebody has it all over their body, right? And I've managed this question in the past. How do you use this in that large surface area, because they have many regions? I would say this. Of course, you can't put enough drops all over your body to get a good saturation from that. So I would use it in your moisturizer, like we talked about. So you'll get some exposure there, but start testing it on some of the most prevalent lesions that you have in given areas. So let's say you've got, a lot of it around your elbows and upper arms and forearms and all that, but you have some other lesions on other parts of the body. I would use it in your lotion, in your moisturizer, but then in these given areas, I would directly apply a couple of drops in that area once a day and rub it in as well, right? So you have a double exposure. Now, if you find that over a short amount of time, usually a couple of weeks, you see a dramatic change in those very angry lesions that you've used it directly on, then you move on to the next one, maybe in your shoulders or wherever else it may be. So tackle regions of the body with direct use, but the whole time mix a few drops in your moisturizer so there's some continuous exposure.
That's a great idea. I didn't say this before, I did type it into the chat, but I have a very stubborn patch of psoriasis on my right shin. And I've had it, psoriasis has moved around in small places on my body since, are you ready, 1997, when I traveled as a speaker and was living off of Diet Coke and Subway sandwiches. Being a vegetarian in the 1990s was not easy if you were on the road. Anyway, so it's haunted me, and it's gotten so much better. And I have this one stubborn spot. And so Kiran sent this to me. Thank you, Kiran. And I've bought my additional bottles myself. And I put it on the psoriasis thinking, okay, I'll try. Naturally I'm a cynic, but of course I believe in Kiran and what he does. So it changed it for the better. And you have to understand, I've had cortisone shots. I've had biologics. You name it. Not just like a natural oil from the yard. I feel like I've really gone medical on this stuff, and it changed it so much for the better. And it's like, I would say I have like maybe 5% of it left. And so I should have started with everybody. This is glorious to have this. If you are interested, do take advantage of the discount. A serum like this in a dermatologist's office, in a salon, in an esthetician's place would be a fortune. And believe me, people are paying so much more money and getting so much less typically.
Yeah.
You want to talk about an active ingredient? That's what we're talking about here. Okay. How does this fix the gut microbiome? Sam, it doesn't fix the microbiome of the gut per se, because we're doing leaky skin today. But if you want to, certainly try Megaspore at Microbiome Labs, which I'll put you a link in there. I did it earlier for 15% off of the spores there that you take internally. The email to send the receipt is in the chat, and it's info@SIBO, SIBO.com. And then let's see here. Let's see, if a serum with an energy frequency wand, can I still use it? If so, do I use yours or theirs first? So just about layering.
Yeah, there's no issue with layering this with anything else. We haven't found anything to be contraindicated. I would say, we always say you separate the use, right? So if you're using another serum, let's say it's a nutritious serum, vitamin C or something like that, you put it on there, let it absorb, give it a 5 to 7 minutes or something, and then put the sieve on. So separate it just a little bit, but there's no issue with layering it. We haven't done any sort of energy testing on it, so I'm not sure how it stacks up with that, but there's no problem layering it with anything.
Okay. So I had another question from someone who couldn't get into the chat, into the Q&A box, and I'm just trying to find it. Oh, here we go. Would you have people with skin issues start with Biocidin, either topically or orally, and then do SIV application? Does it make a difference what kind of cleansing routine, skincare, steam and or cold rinse, change in the diet, reduce and eliminate sugars, add omega-3s? So I know you've covered a lot of that, but please do what you can.
Yeah, I would say, okay, so if you have skin issues, generally what you want to do with regards to all of those other lifestyle factors, right, is number one is look at cleaning up some of your personal care products. So moving to more clean, organic, natural versions of things. So soaps, lotions, shampoos and all that. That becomes an important step. Number two, from a diet perspective, unless you know that there are specific foods that trigger inflammation or irritation on your skin, the most important foods to reduce or even try to eliminate are dairy and gluten. Those are the two biggest things that drive inflammation on the skin based on about 40 or 50 studies on nutrition, diet, and skin outcomes, right? The Mediterranean diet was shown to be one of the most beneficial for the skin. So diet with very high polyphenols, carotenoids, healthy fats seems to be really good for the skin, and high fiber also really helps the skin because short chain fatty acid production in the gut has a modulatory effect on inflammation in the skin. So you want to increase your fiber intake as well. And then try to avoid things like parabens, perfumes, synthetic chemicals, alcohols, things like that on the skin. So that's a general overview on lifestyle issues. Now, no matter what you're doing with all of those, you can start with SIV on day one because it's going to go to work specifically to modulate the microbiome of your skin. You could continue to hurt the microbiome of the skin by using heavily processed and chemical laden cosmetics and personal care products and all that. And I would encourage you to slow that down. But nonetheless, SIV is still going to do its job of modulating your skin microbiome. And then, with regards to using antimicrobials first, right? I'm always, unless you're working with a practitioner and they have some very specific reason why you want to move to an antimicrobial, I would resist doing that as your first step, because again, antimicrobials generally kill everything, good stuff and bad stuff. If you're working with a really studied clinician, they might know how to control and utilize that in the right way. But if you're just working on this on yourself and you're trying to use an antimicrobial on your skin, I would be cautious about that, right? Because you can damage the beneficial bacteria just as much. So I wouldn't say use that first and then use SIV. Start with SIV tomorrow and you'll start to see changes happening to your skin.
Very exciting. Can it support candida in the skin from mold and CIRS? And also disseminated superficial actinic porokeratitis. Yikes.
I love how dermatologists come up with the craziest names for skin conditions, right? And the thing is, like, many of them are so similar. Like, there's so many different versions of keratosis, but they're all basically kind of the same thing. But yes, overgrowth of fungus on the skin is a outcome of a change in pH of your skin, right? So skin's pH is supposed to be around 4.5. It's slightly more acidic than neutral. It's measurably more acidic than neutral. It's not acidic like your stomach, but it is an acidic environment. Now, the reason for the acidity is because that's what prevents fungus and mold and so on from growing on your skin. And so candida, for example, cannot grow at a pH of 4. So you want your skin to be acidic. Now, how does acid maintenance on the skin occur? Well, it comes from beneficial microbes on the skin that take fatty acids that are being secreted by your body on your skin and breaking down the fatty acids to release the acid to bring down the pH. So if you have a dysbiotic skin, you're not releasing the fatty acids properly and your pH goes up. As a result of the pH going up, you start to get candida and other fungal overgrowths, right? And this is where you have the various forms of keratinosis and so on. Now, what the SIV will do was start to bring down the pH of the skin again and directly go after the fungal overgrowth. We've seen that in people with athlete's foot, with various forms of keratinosis, with various forms of malassezia overgrowth and so on. So it can absolutely help with that. It can be a game changer for you.
All right. Not medical advice, everybody. Nothing here is medical advice. This is great insight, great education. And we have to go. Last question. Does this product SIV protect my skin if I've been using a doctor prescribed clobetasol propionate cream antibiotic? I think that's a steroid. I don't know if it's an antibiotic. The rash has been experienced for a year with no success. How soon can SIV be applied? He said right away, as long as there's no blood. Doctor states that I'm experiencing an allergy and has prescribed 2 medications that after reading the insert, I absolutely refuse to take. He's talking about basically antifungals, fluticasone and cetirizine, horrible possible negative reactions. That's all antifungal, my friend. That's all antifungal. That's what this also does.
Yeah, those are steroid anti-inflammatories and antifungals as well. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether you're on those or you stop those, you don't have to be concerned. You could use the SIV as soon as you get it. It's not something that you have to wash out and wean off and all that. If you're still working with that same doctor and you've got a regimen, talk to your doctor about it. Of course. As usual, before you make any sort of changes, and certainly don't change any of your medication based on this conversation. Talk to your doctor about that. But if you're on it and you're using the medications, there's no issue with utilizing SIV as well at the same time.
Does it get rid of milia? What is milia?
I believe that's a fungal issue as well. But I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't say that we've done anything with milia, so I can't
fungal
speak
infections
to that.
of the toenails. That is a hard thing to get, really.
It is. And we've had success with that. Absolutely. We've had cases with that. We haven't done a study, but we've had cases with that where people have reported really dramatic results. So and I would apply directly onto the toenails at that point. That's 1 or 2 drops on each of the nail beds, rub it in, and do that. I would do that, sometime in the evening before you go to bed.
Does it work on flat warts?
Probably not. I wouldn't guess that it would. I can't think of a case on people with warts. Depending on whether they're viral related or not, most and many warts are. But the skin hardens so much, it's hard for me to see. And a lot of times, so where the wart develops is actually a bit of a distance from where the virus is. So it's not that the virus is right there necessarily, right? So it's I can't say that we would anticipate an impact.
Okay, we have a lot of people mailing in for the masterclass is $59. This is Kiran's experience with spore-based probiotics, and you're paying $68 minus 15% for the serum. So I really wanted to make it super special for you. So Allison, Pia, I've got a lot of people's names. I can't even do it. It's so fast, but we've got about 30 or 40 people who've just grabbed it. So you have until 5 o'clock Eastern time in order to take advantage of the bonus masterclass that you would simply send your proof of purchase. Please hear me on that. You have to send us your proof of purchase. info@SIBOSOS.com. My customer service gals and people will take really good care of you, and they'll send you the link so you can download it or watch it. I want to thank Kiran Krishnan. I want to thank Isabella and Morgan, the team. Thank you for creating this. Thank you for keeping it affordable. Thank you for giving us our special discount code. And by the way, it's 10% off at SIBOSOS.com in the shop day in and day out. That's also just for us. But right now it's 15% off just for a few days. So we want to just say, keep up the great work, team. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We love you. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for allowing us to do this with your audience as well. We're super excited about it. So give us your feedback as well, everybody, as you start to use the product. We learn from your feedback and we really appreciate it. There'll be more great science coming out from this. What's your Instagram handle to, learn more? Yeah, so my personal is Kiran Biome, Kiran Biome, and of course, SIV's is SIV Care, SIVCARE, and we're putting a lot of skin-related education on there as well. You'll see Morgan and Isabel on there educating on things as well, which is fantastic to see their lovely faces and the work that they're doing. So, we're super excited about it. It works, everybody. It works. Mm-hmm. It works. You look amazing. Well, thank you. No makeup today. I love this stuff, and it really, really does work. So individual results will vary, but you have to try it before you could even get a result. Mwah! Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, team. Thank you for being here. We have more exciting stuff coming down the pike.
So be sure to keep opening those emails. Your replay will be sent out to you tonight. And actually, during the webinar, I hit a button and sent you an email that has the coupon code and the link. Even if you go to the regular website and use coupon code Shivan15 temporarily, it will give you that 15% off. And don't forget, it's info@SIBO, SIBO, if you do order by 5 p.m. Eastern time to get the $59 value masterclass that he did on spore-based probiotics for internal use. All right. Peace out, everyone. Thank you so much.